Right, let's see what we got going on here. Hang on. Well, it's confession time, and not only that, but also it's time for a warming drink. As the drinks trolley
There he
around
is.
again.
Oh, I love it.
Thank you, David. What is our healthy and long life-inducing drink of the day?
Oh, well, actually, I don't think it's neither of those things. I am still feeling quite Christmassy because we put the decorations up at the weekend, or finished putting the decorations at the weekend. So I thought, why not carry on the tradition and have a little Baileys?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
It's a bit early for Baileys, I
No,
think.
no, just a small one.
Do you think?
Yes,
a
to
little
send you
one.
on your way.
Okay. Very good. I'll have half a pint of Baileys. Thanks very much. Okay, so today's confession comes from Sophie. Thank you very much to Sophie for this tale. Father Simon and the esteemed collective. My name is Sophie, as I think I've just established. Here's my confession. Names have been changed to protect the innocent. This confession goes back to the wonderful 90s. Let me take you back, so specifically 1990, when we had obviously just come out of the 80s.
That's so true. It is. It's accurate. Well
There's
done.
nothing controversial in this so far. It's mathematically spot on. Shell suits were becoming fashionable, and hair was still bouffant. Such times, Father Simon. Imagine looking cool with big hair and a crisp polyester shiny shell suit to look glamorous in. I have to admit, I did have.
Did you?
I had a Tottenham Hotspur shell suit.
Really?
Well, if you're doing breakfast, you just put on whatever's handy.
Yeah.
Did you have a shell suit?
No, I didn't. No. Neither did I have the bouffant hairstyle either, unfortunately.
Susie, did you ever have a shell suit?
I had a shell suit, yeah.
Of course.
Excellent, very good. Just establishing it's actually got nothing to do with where we are, but it is very
Never mind.
1990.
Yes.
So, we're just starting a new decade, and Arachnophobia, the movie,
Oh, yeah.
first came to our cinemas. This is the Jeff Daniels film, where a large spider from the jungles of South America gets to wreak havoc on the residents of a small town in California. Does the word wreak always come with havoc after?
It does. Absolutely.
anything
Nothing else.
Is anything wreaked?
Reek? No.
Anyway, we're wreaking havoc with the residents of a small town in California, along with a few other spiders it's created on the way, which is nature. Anyway, it was a movie fairly obviously full of top-class spider action. Just at this point, I should remember, when this came out first time, this movie, I had a confession very, very similar to this.
Oh, right.
I mean, it's all heading in the same direction.
Okay.
Sophie says, at this time in my life, I was a young teenager. I had a close group of friends where we did everything together, and this included trips to the cinema. This confession starts with my group of friends arranging a Saturday night trip to the cinema to watch the aforementioned movie Arachnophobia, 15 certificate or whatever it was. We were all very excited and looking forward to being freaked out by this film. However, the same week, a work friend really wanted to see this film as well, but couldn't make the weekend. So out of the goodness of my heart, I volunteered to go with, we shall call her Sally, on Saturday. Because I volunteered to go, shall we call her Sally, because Saturday was not an option for Sally to join in with my small group of friends.
So she was going to go on Saturday with Sally. Is that right? No.
Sally can't go on Saturday.
Sally can't go on Saturday.
She's agreed to go twice.
So she's going twice. Right, I understand now. Could have probably phrased a sentence like that. But anyway, let's carry on. Loving the grammar and syntax.
Sophie, I apologise for the fact you're being criticised in front of the nation.
Wowzer.
So now I had watched the film that we were all so eager to see because I'd seen it with Sally. This is the second time.
Second time, of course, yeah.
Yes.
So
I
clear.
decided to keep quiet and not say anything about my unfaithfulness to my group by seeing the movie already, so that makes it, this is the second time I've seen it. Saturday night comes, we all meet up, eager and excited by what we're about to watch, settling into our seats at the cinema. My friend Tom was in front of me. As the lights went down and the opening scenes came on, I still had to look like I had no idea what was going to happen because I'd seen it already, which I think you know now. In fact, I'd seen it 2 nights previously with my other friend because she couldn't make the Saturday.
No.
So we now get to the point of the film where the sheriff is flicking through the hanging mugs looking for spiders. I could see my friend Tom getting more and more tense. I knew that nothing happened because I'd seen it in this scene, and truthfully, I had no idea why I did what I did next. But when they get to the last mug in the row and the music is tense and supremely suspenseful, I popped a piece of popcorn down my friend's top. If I had known what was going to happen next, I would have thought twice. As the popcorn slid slowly between his skin and the fabric of his shirt, my friend leapt to his feet, screaming in a manner that I can only describe as high-pitched hysteria. This then passed onto the ladies sat next to him, and then row after row after row decided to join in with the panic, to the point that there was an awful lot of screaming. My friend at this point had his shirt off, red card, and was seen vacating the cinema at high speed, still trying to get rid of what he was convinced was a Venezuelan killer spider. Wow. The ushers came in to try and calm the cinema down, and our group all had to leave to find our friend, the still shirtless Tom, who was in the foyer, a quivering wreck, being consoled by a member of staff. We all decided that maybe going back in was not the best option, so with that we all proceeded to the pool tables. I do not deserve forgiveness for this, as it made our local newspaper, and I've had to live with this guilt for some time.
Oh, very good.
I would like to ask forgiveness, though, from all the people in the cinema who one minute were watching a film to suddenly find themselves in a moment of hysteria. Forgiveness, please, from my poor friends who had so eagerly waited to watch this film that was interrupted. But more than anything else, I'm asking forgiveness of my poor friend Tom, who I imagine to this day still shudders at the very word arachnophobia, and for the sheer embarrassment I caused him that day, which he does not realise until now was a piece of popcorn and not a Venezuelan killing spider. Well, I think the previous confession that I had about arachnophobia was exactly the same. Pardon me. Apart from someone dropping, someone dropping a plastic spider from the balcony.
Yes. Yes.
With exactly the same effect. Anyway, Sister Susie.
Well, I struggle with this because I don't think if you'd have done it to me, I don't think I would have forgiven you, Sally. But that must have happened so many times in the cinema watching that movie, because anything that touches you, you're going to think it's a spider, aren't you? Whether it's just like a bit of wind or, you know, someone's breath, I don't know. But I just think I'm going to forgive Sally just because I think Matt was a bit mean to her about her sentence structure. And if she'd have waited a bit longer, I think it would have been clear that she went twice.
Yes, Sophie went twice. Sally was the reason that she went
so,
twice.
yes, Sophie went twice. See, Suze. Yeah, that was made clear.
A brother from another gutter.
Second time round. So I am going to forgive. I have to say the popcorn is a genius move. I remember that original confession with the spider being thrown. And I think using popcorn instead, excellent. Because, of course, it doesn't involve any premeditation at all. It's just, I've got popcorn, I'm at the cinema, but this is going to be hilarious. It also reminds me that when I was first courting my wife, I went to the cinema twice. We went on our first date, we went to see Speed with Keanu Reeves, and I'd already seen Keanu Reeves. Does that make me the greatest husband ever? Not for me to say, Suze. Not for me to say. But so other people might say that because I went to the cinema twice, even though I'd already seen that movie. So, on that reason, I'm going to forgive.
Okay. The people's verdict, please. 61054. Start your message with Simon. Thank you. Sophie's confession was about going to see Arachnophobia back in 1990. PG certificate, by the way, not a 15. And how she turned a piece of popcorn into what appeared to be a Venezuelan killing spider, with hilarious consequences. People's verdict is in. Here we go.
So Jerry says, forgive and hold the front page. Sister Susie forgives. It's the kind of movie that cries out for a good scary wheeze. And Nikki from Burnley says, I have to forgive Sophie, as it's mild compared to my ex. He was a roofer at the time and had collected a bag of spiders, which he proceeded to pour over some people. Needless to say, he got banned from the cinema.
Yes.
And Greg says, when I took a girlfriend to see Jaws with my arm around her shoulders, at the sight of the head floating out of a boat, I just squeezed her. She jumped about a foot in the air, setting off a Mexican wave along the row. I was laughing so much I couldn't deny my sin. I was going to need more than a bigger boat to avoid being dumped.
Excellent. Very, very good. So your confession, please. Maybe it's a movie-based confession, a cinema-based confession, a spider-based confession, a phobia-based confession. We'd like to hear about them. If we use them, you get a smart speaker. Simon at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Well, let's take it down with another confession. Thank you very much indeed for all the confessions coming our way. Can I just say, just a reminder, having just read a whole batch. One, if your confession involves something that is criminal, it's probably not going to get read out.
It's definitely not going to get... If it's criminal, it's not getting on.
Nope.
I mean, I think that's... Also, any any confession at all which involves a laxative
Yes.
is not getting on. So save yourself the time, okay? It ain't going to happen. I'm just doing that, just as a
Yeah.
just to help.
Oh, look, it's the
Just
trolley.
in time, the David Jacobs Memorial Drinks Trolley. What are you selecting from the trolley today, Suze?
Well, I'm still feeling quite Christmassy, so how about a Kia Royale cocktail, which is creme de cassis, so blackcurrant liqueur, topped
Yeah.
up with fizz. It's easy peasy.
When you say
delicious.
you're still feeling Christmassy, it's like December the 6th. I mean, we've got weeks of this still
Yeah.
to go.
I know.
Yeah, fabulous.
All right, okay,
It's
well,
excellent.
I'll have half a pint. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
So today's confession comes from Bruce, and Bruce says, "Hi, Simon and the gang. I'm writing to you after many years of soul-searching. I need to get this terrible burden off my chest, not just for me and my nearly grown-up children, but also to a noted figure of early childhood who I surely wronged in 2012. I take you back to the early autumn of that year. I dropped my children off at Breakfast Club before heading off to work. My 7-year-old son was particularly excited because he had a wobbly tooth and didn't think that it would last the day. He was contemplating what he could spend his tooth fairy earnings on, which works out at £7.52 in today's money, allowing for inflation and the poor performance of the pound against the dollar.
Very good.
Due to Liz Truss,
Right.
says Bruce.
Okay.
Wow.
Which makes it a topical reference.
It
I don't
does.
think there's any disputing the facts.
No.
Everything seems
I'm
to have...
sure that's the case.
What, are you looking for a bit of balance there? When I picked the kids up after school, says Bruce, I was greeted by an excited, gap-toothed little boy holding up a blood-stained tissue containing one of his front teeth. Because Mum was at work late and because I couldn't be bothered to cook a nutritious tea, we headed in classic dad style to the Golden Arches for a tasty burger. All the way through the tea, I had to constantly... So loads of dads have just gone, yeah, I'd have done that.
Yeah.
actually. In fact, I did that. All the way through tea, I had to constantly warn my son to keep his tooth safe in his pocket, or else he would have nothing to put under his pillow at bedtime. Just as I was scraping all the scraps and wrappers into the bin, I was startled by a sudden cry from my son, who had inevitably lost his tooth.
Oh no.
He was nowhere to be found, despite fruitless searches through pockets and bags. I asked him where he had last seen it, and he said it was on his tray. So I ran back to the bin, parental urgency, and pushed back the lid to be greeted by a good 4 hours worth of food.
Oh, lovely.
Rolls, gherkins, chips, tissues, half-used sachets of sauce,
what?
cardboard wrappers. You know what it's like. Excuse me. I realised I had no hope of finding the tooth. So I grabbed the cleanest tissue I could see and popped it straight into my pocket, saying, "Ha, I found it. All good. Keep it safe until bedtime. Let's go." Well, inevitably, bedtime was soon upon us, and my son was asking for his tooth, so he could put it in the specially prepared envelope, along with his personally scribbled letter.
Envelope?
For that night shift's tooth fairy. So, what to do? As he was brushing what teeth he had left, I was tidying up looking for some inspiration when I spotted a small plastic medieval knight lying on the carpet. I acted on the spur of the moment, and with desperation, I picked the soldier up, grabbed a pair of scissors, and decapitated him.
Excellent.
Pocketed the head and lobbed the plastic carcass into the recycling bin. Please take this into account when deciding whether I'm guilty or not. I shot upstairs before I could realise the desperation and sordid nature of my actions. I found the empty envelope under his pillow and pushed the head into the one corner of it, sealing the envelope with additional sellotape in case he felt the need for one last look. I spent a sleepless night worrying about my young son discovering the severed head, not a sentence I imagined that I would ever have said in a confession before, and the absence of the tooth, to the point that I sneaked into his room at about 2:30 a.m, removed the head from the envelope and replaced it with what was probably an excessive amount of cash for that particular time. I quickly scribbled a note on the outside of the envelope from the tooth fairy, and this added to my sins, because obviously that was a forgery. I went back to bed and I slept like a baby. My son woke the next morning to quite a windfall, I have to say, and was none the wiser as to what had transpired. I want to seek the forgiveness of you and your team, but also of my son, also the poor tooth fairy, who may have sneaked into his room later and discovered a severed head rather than a shiny tooth. Although in my defence, there was probably less blood involved. In some way, I've paid a financial price as both my children expected the same extortionate payment every couple of months as their teeth fell out, despite my increasingly desperate attempts to convince them that the Tooth Fairy was struggling to maintain a viable recycling business, given the improvements in dental hygiene and the reduction in processed food sugar content.
Of course.
You got Liz Truss? No.
Yeah,
All
no.
right,
I don't think you can blame Liz Truss for your teeth falling out. No. We could probably have a go. Okay, good. Ingenious work from Bruce, but forgiven or not, what say you, Sister Susie? Live from the pub.
Well, Bruce, there's a few things here. Like, how big was the severed head? Like, was it the same size as the tooth? I'm not really sure you could have got away with it, really, just by feeling it, because your son definitely would have given it a good feel, I reckon. But hey, anyway.
I reckon it was probably like a little Lego figure, you know, like a tiny little head like that.
Okay, yeah. I still don't know if the same size as the tooth, but anyway, I just think it wasn't your fault. You told your son to keep the tooth in the pocket, and he probably should have done that. He was eating his dinner. Who wants a bloody tissue all over the table while you're having your food?
No,
not me. So therefore,
tissue is bloody.
Bloody, I thought
Tissue
Susan
with
finally
blood.
gone over the edge there.
I thought,
but maybe it's the Christmas spirit. I don't think it's your fault, Bruce. I'm going to forgive you.
she's a producer. She can say what
I
she
mean, you
wants.
just thought so.
Yes.
Looks like she's going on another course.
Brother from another gutter.
I'm going to forgive. I mean, really, Bruce, you're making a rod for your own back by giving in to the exorbitant fees charged by the Tooth Fairy, frankly. And I've never heard of this envelope and putting it in an envelope and writing a letter to the Tooth Fairy. That never happened in my day. Just the tooth underneath the pillow. That's no one's put. Who's got the Tooth Fairy hasn't got time to be writing letters or indeed reading them. Too many children to be going around.
You can't just put a tooth under a pillow.
Of course you can. That's exactly what you do. You put a tooth under the pillow. But I'm going to forgive just because we decided that you would go back into the bedroom at 2:30. 2:30.
I hadn't thought of that.
Come on. So for that reason, I'm going to forgive.
Very good. Nice spot there. But the thing is, do you forgive Bruce? Yes or no? I think he's pretty ingenious. On the text, please, 61054. First word is Simon. Is Bruce forgiven? It's down to you. Tonight's confession was from Bruce, who swapped his son's tooth for a decapitated head. It was a toy head.
Yes.
A big payout from the Easter Bunny was required. The people's verdict is in. Here it comes.
So Rachel says Bruce is completely forgiven. If his little boy was happy, that's what mattered. And Matt, yes, speaking as a parent whose insomniac and consequently inquisitive child ended up with a tooth in his ear, it's a good idea to put it into something before you put it under the pillow.
Matt.
Nick in Newcastle says, forgiven. We've all been there. I've thrown out 2 rap teeth that were left on the kitchen bench, then subbed them for gravel. And finally,
Gravel?
gravel. Finally, the Tooth Fairy says, this sort of thing messes up our factory. Plastic in the processing plant does not work. Not forgiven.
Thank you. Your confessions, please. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Let us enter the confessions dungeon.
Wow. Where's this come from? This has never been done before.
Okay.
Oh, the dungeon with the drinks trolley.
That's right. Is David just bringing it round? Thank you, David. Just leave it there. What is our drink from the trolley today?
I'm still keeping the festive theme going. We've just put the hot mulled cider out in the pub today, so I thought, why not have a big glass of that?
It's one of those drinks that you have a couple of glasses, you think, right, was there any fruit in that at all, or was it just raw alcohol?
Correct.
Anyway, I think anything mulled is going to sell rather well in the next few days.
Yes.
And hot as well.
Very nice.
Easy on the cloves.
Easy on the clothes or the cloves?
On the on the clothes.
It's our new food and drink feature.
Easy on the clothes.
Today's confession comes from Humphrey. Thank you very much, Humphrey. Simon and the Wonderful Collective. Back in the late 60s, I attended junior school in a rather run-down part of London's East End. Now, there's an interesting sentence coming up. Being of English and Italian descent, I had, even at that early age, taken a real fancy to members of the opposite sex.
Right, okay.
What?
Quite the fact you're English and Italian
That's got
has
nothing
got
to do with it.
anything to do with it? I don't know. Anyway, continues Humphrey, name changed, obviously, because not very Italian or English. Oh, I suppose a little bit English. Anyway, but my attention was particularly drawn to a young girl named Penelope. She was strikingly pretty, and I was well and truly bowled over. However, no matter how hard I tried, she ignored me, preferring to play games in the playground with her friends This seemed extraordinary to me. There they were, skipping, playing hopscotch, tying up each other's hair, when I was trying to chat to Penny. I called her Penny because
Obviously
Penelope was the right thing, but I thought I might be casual. I was standing tall and looking as grown up as I could manage. I'd even taken to reading the class book in the playground. Magic Everywhere it was called, I believe. I thought I looked rather cool.
Yeah, I like it.
Anyway, it was because of this that I hatched my devious plan. I decided to strategically position myself in the playground so that when she ran past, I would accidentally trip her up.
Oh, excellent. Great idea. Cannot fail.
And then rush to help. Rush to help, apologizing profusely, which would ensure that we spoke. And maybe she would even ask me to carry her inside.
Yes.
Or something like that. And I would be the dashing hero of the hour. She would open her eyes, see me there, all concerned, catch a glimpse of the class reader in my blazer pocket, and realise what an intellectual I was and how lucky she must be. A veritable Prince Charming.
Yep.
Well, the plan worked. Sort of. For as Penny ran past, I accidentally tripped her up. Phase 1 successfully completed. Now for the slightly more complicated Phase 2.
Oh dear.
I pocketed my book and ran over, just as her friends surrounded her. You remember, the hopscotch and skipping brigade? Well, them. Annoying then and annoying now.
Yeah.
And it was just then that we all noticed her arm.
Oh,
it
no.
was not right.
Oh no.
In fact, it seemed to be at a rather jaunty angle. Certainly not the way it should look. And then the teachers arrived. And they realised, too, that Penny was inconsolable and she was in a lot of pain. While she waited for the ambulance...
Oh my goodness.
I was marched into the headmaster's office and told off with the threat of a letter going to my parents. Which then happened. I received detention and punishment from my father. Penny never did speak to me because I did in fact break her arm, which seems...
What? Oh my.
This meant that she wore a plaster cast for many weeks. She still looked amazing, by the way. Anyway,
Dear.
it's an important detail.
Yeah, it is.
The final punishment was that I was sent to live with my mother in Ealing.
Oh. Sure, that's not...
Not sure that Ealing or your mother can...
No,
have
no.
that
There are
sentence
very nice
well.
parts of Ealing.
Obviously, I would like to seek forgiveness from Penny for, well, breaking her arm, which wasn't all my fault, as she fell awkwardly when I tripped her. So in a way, she must take some of the blame. Also, forgiveness from the teachers who had to give up their breaks to supervise my detention. I often think of Penny and wonder how her arm is and whether she learnt to fall properly in the future. What a great payoff that is to get everyone's sympathy. Kind regards always, Humphrey. If only she'd learned to fall properly.
I mean, come on, Penny.
Sister Susie.
Oh, Humphrey. I think that she probably fell properly in the first instance, and the fact is, you tripped her up. And okay, maybe you didn't mean to break her leg, but you still tripped her up. Oh, arm. Anything could have happened.
Yeah.
She could have broken a leg. She could have broken, 2 arms. It's mean.
Two
and
arms.
Yeah, but
being
she didn't.
mean.
She just broke one
Could have
arm.
fallen into a combine harvester. Could have happened.
She could have.
Could have done.
You don't know.
We don't know,
Therefore,
do we,
don't
Suze?
trip
No.
up in the first place.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to forgive you.
I mean, I think that seems like a fair conclusion, even if it was a meander to get there.
Yeah.
Brother from another guy.
I think this confession firmly falls into the category of we've all done that. We've all been we've all been at school, saw someone we fancied, and you do something in order to get their attention.
You don't trip them
and,
up,
well,
then.
maybe you do.
don't have to be mean.
I mean, that could have happened.
Did
People
you do something like this?
Maybe not, but I mean, a little bit of and who knows where it would lead. So I think none of us can look in the mirror and say I wouldn't have done that. And I think for that reason we should really be forgiving. And also, yes, what was she doing with her arm that it ended up being broken? Not that we're going to be blaming Penny for that, but in a way we are. So for that reason, I choose to forgive. Yep,
Right.
sticking with it.
Okay, so the people's verdict, please. Do you forgive Humphrey, yes or no, on the text 61054. People's verdict has arrived. Today's confession came from Humphrey. It was a playground story from the 60s where he tripped a girl on purpose because he fancied her and wanted to be the dashing hero. Unfortunately, she broke her arm. And that was it, and they never spoke again. And Humphrey was also trying to say, well, maybe she should learn to fall properly in the future. But anyway, the people's verdict is in. Here it comes.
So Sarah in Surrey says, Unforgiven. I don't think Humphrey thought this through. What if him and Penny did fall in love and many years later got married and lived happily ever after?
True.
Would Humphrey ever confess that they only met because he tripped her up? And would he keep that a secret? Nightmare. Kathy in Colford, though, says, Forgiven, because love makes us do foolish things.
Does it?
And Finley says, Forgiven, I did this in my late 20s as a nurse, and it worked until she dumped me a year later for another nurse.
Righty-ho. Okay, so there are so many different layers to all of that.
Yes.
We would love your tale, please. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. And a festive confession? That would be particularly nice. Well, it's confession time. Thank you for the Christmas and Yuletide confessions which are coming in. We're going to do smart speakers, obviously. I'm not quite sure. When are we going to start the Christmas confessions?
Well, I don't know.
Oh, good. Well, that was worth checking. I don't know either.
Let's just the trolley.
Depends how many we've got.
Concentrate on the drinks trolley. And
That's what I do best.
thank you, David. You can just leave it there. What are we going to have today?
Well, I thought, why not have a Negroni?
Oh, a Negroni.
A Negroni this evening. A delicious cocktail. Very easy to do. You don't need a cocktail shaker as well. You can just stir them together, so you don't need to shake.
My kind of cocktail.
I thought it was a beer, Negroni.
No, that's a Peroni.
Peroni.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
You can have one of those if you prefer.
As a sharpener.
Ah, yes.
Today's confession, I ought to look. It comes from Baz.
Uh-huh.
All I can say is this has definitely got a 12A certificate.
Oh, yes.
And if you are currently involved in the making, preparation, or the consumption of food, you might want to pause momentarily. My tale begins over 3 decades ago in the 1980s, somewhere in the depths of the Black Country. Money was scarce, Father Sam, and frequently my friends and I would run short of cash for drinks before the end of the night. It was at this time that one such friend developed what some would call a unique skill. When he came up short, he began drifting through smoke-filled pubs, sweeping the area for what he called leftover drinks and consuming them. Though actually they were just drinks that someone had popped onto the table or a shelf as opposed to actually have left.
Oh, dear. Oh, right.
Ugh.
As the years went on, we were able to finally afford to buy drinks until closing time. This person continued with his practice. What we had once observed as an entertaining prank, we now found a little distasteful and, to be honest, out of order. As a result of this behaviour, the sweeper, as we called him, become a little tight, to say the least. Always the last at the bar and conveniently disappearing when it was his round. You know the type, moths in the wallet, that kind. All of us were now doing okay financially, thank you very much, and often as a group we would club together for a table at a charity ball or other function. A selection of drinks would be purchased. I should say another reason for the 12A certificate is the 1970s language, which we're about to enjoy.
Wow.
Charity ball or function, a selection of drinks would be purchased, and often a few bottles of bubbles for our good ladies.
Ah, right. Okay.
As is often the case, the ladies would head to the dance floor, whilst us men would retire from the table to take up our position, standing uselessly behind the chairs, discussing the affairs of state.
Wow.
One evening, being of a certain age, I suddenly needed to go to the loo. But I should explain that this was a charity ball at a school, and the toilets were quite some way away from where we were.
Okay.
In a bit of a panic, I noticed that there was an open fire exit behind me, and perhaps it was being back at school, but my schoolboy attitude reappeared, and I grabbed the nearest glass and headed out through the said fire exit. Once everything was complete, I sneaked back inside with the glass, intending to tip it away as soon as possible. But as I returned, a voice said to me, "Have you bought a raffle ticket yet?" "Oh, no, I haven't," I said. It was the head of the PTA.
Oh.
"Well, come on then, get your wallet out," which I duly did, placing the full glass, briefly, I thought, on the table. Making polite conversation and taking the raffle tickets from the member of the PTA, I noticed the sweeper making his way over to the table, eyeing up the glasses on the table, vulnerably sitting there whilst their owners shimmied on the dance floor, unaware of the threat. Now, it had been a good evening, but a little warm in the hall, hence the open fire exit. Imagine the sweeper's surprise when he saw a full glass of champagne, apparently, just sitting there waiting for some grateful recipient. Before I could say a word to intervene, the sweeper stood in front of the head of the PTA and downed the glass in one.
Oh, in one!
I froze. I apologise, what can I say? Bringing the glass away from his lips, he said, "Oh, that was dead as a dodo."
Oh, dear. Oh, my goodness.
I walked away. Father Simon says, "Baz, I asked not for forgiveness from the sweeper, as after decades of this petty thieving, not just from strangers but also from his friends, I feel he kind of got what he deserved. But from anyone who may have seen me popping out of the fire exit, and also anyone who was suitably upset by the confession I had just passed on, I do indeed beg for forgiveness, please, from the humble collective and the listeners to Greatest Hits Radio." Well, let's just see where we go.
Baz.
Sister Susie, from the pub.
I just don't know what to... I just don't know what to say about this. I don't forgive the minesweeper at all. It's terrible behaviour. But also, could you not have just gone to the... I don't care how old you are. Just go to the toilet. Just why are you taking a glass outside? You know, and you were in a school. Anyone could have seen you. No, thank you. Not forgiven, Baz.
I mean, I've got to say,
Brother Matthew.
I'm very much with Suze on this one. I mean, why are you using the fire? The loos are far away, I get that, but the loos are there. You can get to the loos. Unless you're camping in the Arctic, you don't need to nip outside with your glass to be able to answer the call of nature. There's absolutely no excuse for that. Honestly, I don't have a lot of sympathy for the sweeper guy, because frankly, he had it coming. But I'm going to forgive.
What? No.
Just because he's not actually done anything wrong, has he? All he's done is he's left the bottle, he's left the glass there,
and he's
bought the raffle tickets, and in a way, you know, maybe the sweeper learned his lesson. Actually, that's a point. Yeah, maybe the sweeper learned his lesson, and in a way, haven't we all? So, for that reason, I'm going to forgive. Tenuous.
Very tenuous. Well, I kind of guess which way this is going to go. But the people's verdict, please. Can you get in touch now? Do you forgive Baz, yes or no? 61054. First word is Simon. And just before 6, we had tonight's confession from Baz. I'm not going to repeat the details because we're about to do some food. Anyway, but Baz confessed, and here's the people's verdict.
So Joe says, I agree with Matt. The drink sweeper learned his lesson. Jonty says, not forgiven. Why take a glass outside and then fetch it back inside? And Tommy in Liverpool says, I'm not sure whether to forgive or not. It's all a bit hit and miss.
That's the abbreviated version because Matt has already started eating. That's the basic deal, because there are going to be clear plates everywhere.